Picture this. You snip a healthy stem from your favorite pothos or your neighbor's beautiful hydrangea, drop it into a mason jar filled with tap water, and set it on the windowsill with high hopes. 3 days later, instead of roots, you get a slimy brown mess and a smell that makes you want to dump the whole thing down the drain. Sound familiar? Here's something that might surprise you. Long before garden centers sold rooting hormone in plastic bottles, Amish communities in places like Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and Holmes County, Ohio, were propagating plants with almost perfect success rates, using nothing but what grew around their farms and what sat in their pantries. No electricity, no greenhouse misting systems, no synthetic chemicals. Just old knowledge passed from grandmother to granddaughter, generation after generation, since these communities settled in North America in the early 1700s. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly what they used, why it works on a biological level, and how you can use the same tricks in your own home starting this afternoon. Stick around until the end, because I'll also clear up a rooting myth that's probably ruining your success rate right now without you even knowing it. Let's talk about what actually happens when you cut a piece off a living plant. The moment that stem is separated from its root system, it goes into a kind of biological panic. It has no more incoming water, no more nutrients, and worse, an open wound that's completely exposed. In nature, plants never sit with their wounded stems soaking in stagnant water for days on end. Rainwater moves, evaporates, gets absorbed by soil. A glass jar on your windowsill does none of that. Ordinary tap water in most American cities is treated with chlorine or chloramine, specifically to kill bacteria, which sounds helpful until you realize it also stresses plant tissue and can damage the microscopic vascular pathways a cutting needs to eventually pull up moisture. Meanwhile, that open cut is basically an all-you-can-eat buffet for opportunistic bacteria and fungal spores already floating in the water and the air. Without stored energy reserves or an active immune response, the stem simply can't fight back, and rot wins almost every single time. Think about leaving an open cut on your hand submerged in lukewarm water for 4 straight days. It wouldn't heal, it would fester. That's exactly what's happening in that jar on your windowsill, and it's why so many people give up on propagation thinking they just don't have the touch for it. Here's where things get interesting. Raw, unfiltered honey isn't just a sweetener sitting in your pantry. Dr. Peter Mullen, a biochemist at the University of Waikato in New Zealand, spent over 3 decades studying honey's antibacterial properties and documented that raw honey naturally produces small amounts of hydrogen peroxide through an enzyme called glucose oxidase, which bees add during the honey-making process. This gives raw honey genuine antimicrobial power without the harshness of synthetic disinfectants. Amish gardeners figured this out generations before any lab confirmed it. The method is simple. Dip the freshly cut end of your stem into about half a teaspoon of raw honey before placing it in water, or dissolve a small amount directly into the jar. The honey coats that vulnerable open wound like an invisible bandage, blocking out the bacteria and fungal spores that would otherwise move in and rot the tissue. At the same time, honey delivers a quick hit of natural sugars the stressed cutting can use as immediate energy, almost like handing an exhausted marathon runner a piece of fruit at the finish line. Instead of spending its limited resources fighting off infection, the plant redirects that energy toward producing new root cells. Try this with a rubber plant cutting, a notoriously difficult one because of its milky sap. Wipe the sap away with a clean cloth, dip the cut end into raw honey, then place it in room temperature water. Within 10 to 14 days, you'll usually see small white bumps forming at the cut, called callus tissue, which is the first visible sign that roots are about to emerge. If the honey trick impresses you, wait until you hear about Willow water, because this one is arguably even older and more powerful. In 1935, plant physiologist Kenneth Thyman, working at the California Institute of Technology, helped identify indole 3-butyric acid, commonly called IBA, as one of the primary hormones responsible for root initiation in plants. That exact same compound occurs naturally, in high concentration, in the growing tips of willow trees, along with natural salicylic acid, which helps trigger a plant's defense and healing responses. Willow trees are so good at rooting that if you literally stick a cut willow branch into moist soil upside down, it will often still grow roots. That's how concentrated this natural rooting power is. Making your own willow water at home takes almost no effort. Head outside and cut several thin, flexible young willow branches, ideally new growth from this year rather than old woody stems, since the hormone concentration is highest there. Chop these branches into pieces roughly 1 to 2 inches long. Fill a large jar with 2 generous handfuls of the chopped pieces, then pour boiling water over them just like you're brewing a strong batch of tea. Let this steep undisturbed for 24 hours, then strain out the woody bits. What's left is a brownish liquid that acts as a completely free, completely natural rooting hormone concentrate. Soak your fresh cuttings in this willow water for the first 2 days before transferring them into regular water. That short soak is often enough to kickstart root formation, even in stubborn plants that have failed with every other method. Even with honey or willow water working in your favor, technique still matters enormously. First, always cut at a clean 45-degree angle, using a sharp sanitized blade, never dull kitchen scissors or your fingernails, which crush the stem's internal tissue and block water absorption. Second, and this is the detail most beginners completely miss, roots don't sprout randomly along a stem. They emerge almost exclusively from the leaf node, that small bump where a leaf attaches. This is where the plant concentrates its actively dividing cells, essentially its stem cell factory. Always make your cut just below a node, then strip away the lowest leaf so that node sits bare and submerged underwater. Leave only 2 or 3 healthy leaves at the top, removing everything else, since each leaf demands water the rootless cutting simply can't supply yet. Water quality matters too. If your tap water is heavily chlorinated, let it sit uncovered for 24 hours before using it, which allows the chlorine to evaporate naturally. Change the water every 3 to 4 days to keep oxygen levels fresh, since stagnant water suffocates developing root tips. Temperature is another silent factor. Most houseplants originate from tropical or subtropical regions, and root fastest between 72 and 79 degrees Fahrenheit. If your jar sits on a cold windowsill in winter, growth essentially stalls completely. Finally, avoid direct harsh sunlight, which causes a rootless cutting to lose water faster than it can theoretically absorb it. Bright, indirect light near an east-facing window is ideal. Once you see healthy white roots an inch or 2 long, resist the urge to jam that cutting straight into dry potting soil. Roots formed in water are structurally different from soil roots, and the sudden change causes serious transplant shock. Instead, add a small spoonful of fine potting soil to the water jar every day for about a week, gradually turning the water cloudy and thick, letting the roots slowly adjust before the real move. When you finally do pot it up, cover the whole plant loosely with a clear plastic bag for 1 to 2 weeks, creating a miniature greenhouse that traps humidity around the leaves while the roots settle in. Just remember to lift the bag briefly once a day for fresh air. This single trick, borrowed straight from old Amish greenhouse practices using glass jars and clochets, dramatically increases your success rate. What you've learned today isn't complicated chemistry, it's just paying attention to what plants have always needed. If this changed the way you think about propagating cuttings, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment telling us which plant you're trying this on first, and give this video a like so we can keep digging up these forgotten methods together.